He saved lives by day on a suicide hotline. He shook hands with governors and senators. He was the man everyone trusted. He was also America's most terrifying killer. And the scariest part? He told us exactly who he was. Nobody believed him. He was handsome, charming, educated. He volunteered to save lives on a suicide hotline. He worked for politicians. He shook hands with governors. He was the kind of man your mother would have trusted. And at night, he hunted. Ted Bundy confessed to 30 murders. But investigators believe the real number could be closer to 100, maybe more. Tonight, we open the file. Not the story you've seen on Netflix, the parts they left out, the secrets buried in the case files, the connections nobody talks about. This is File 47. Theodore Robert Bundy was born on November 24th, 1946, in Burlington, Vermont. But from the very beginning, his life was built on lies. He grew up believing his grandparents were his parents, and his mother, his real mother, was introduced to him as his sister. Think about that for a moment. The first relationship he ever had was a lie. His grandfather, Samuel Cowell, was known in the neighborhood as a violent, rageful man. Young Ted idolized him. Neighbors later recalled something disturbing. At just 3 years old, Ted was found placing kitchen knives around the bed of his sleeping aunt. He stood there, watching, smiling. Most biographers brush this off as a child's curiosity, but investigators who studied his psychology disagree. They believe the darkness in Ted Bundy didn't start in college. It started here, in this house, before he could even read. And here's what almost nobody talks about. Several criminologists believe Bundy committed his first murder as a teenager, as young as 14 or 15 years old. The victim, never identified. The case, never solved. The evidence, circumstantial but chilling. By the time Ted Bundy reached his 20s, he had mastered something terrifying, the art of being two people at once. During the day, he was a rising star. He studied law. He was sharp, articulate, and persuasive. He worked as a volunteer for the Seattle Crisis Clinic, a suicide hotline where desperate people called for help. His supervisor there was a woman named Ann Rule. She later became one of America's most famous true crime writers, and she wrote an entire book about him. She said, and this is the part that haunts her to this day, she considered Ted Bundy one of the kindest, most caring people she had ever met. While he was saving lives on that phone, he was already killing. But it gets deeper. Ted Bundy didn't just work with vulnerable people, he worked with powerful ones. In 1968, Bundy volunteered for the Washington State Republican Party. He worked directly on political campaigns. He rubbed shoulders with governors, senators, and influential figures. His supervisor at the time described him as, quote, one of the brightest young men I have ever met. Now ask yourself this question. A charming, intelligent, well-connected young man, moving freely through the corridors of political power. How many people knew? How many people looked away? And why has this part of his story almost completely disappeared from the mainstream narrative? The official number is 30. 30 confirmed victims across 7 states. That's the number they put in the textbooks. But here's what the lead investigators actually believed. Robert Keppel, the detective who hunted Bundy for years, said in multiple interviews that 30 was almost certainly the minimum, not the total. When Bundy was on death row, he offered to give information on unsolved cases, but only in exchange for delays to his execution. He used dead girls as bargaining chips. And here's the disturbing part. Even after all those conversations with investigators, there are still victims who have never been identified. Women whose families never got answers. women who are still listed as missing persons today. Bundy operated across Washington, Oregon, Utah, Colorado, and Florida. But investigators found evidence suggesting he may have traveled even further. Road trips, alone, with no alibi. In 1974 alone, at least 8 young women disappeared in the Pacific Northwest. 8 women in 1 year. And Bundy was never in the same place twice when police came looking. One of the most chilling details that rarely gets mentioned. Bundy kept souvenirs. He would return to the bodies of his victims, sometimes days later. He photographed them. Some of those photographs have never been found. Ted Bundy escaped from prison twice. The first time, in 1977, he jumped out of a courthouse library window in Colorado. He was recaptured 8 days later. 6 months after that, he escaped again, this time from Garfield County Jail. He crawled through a hole in the ceiling of his cell and disappeared for 45 days. 45 days. During those 45 days, he drove to Florida. He rented a room under a fake name, and he killed again. Now here's the question that investigators have quietly debated for decades. How does a man on the FBI's most wanted list move freely across the country for 45 days without help? He had no money, no car initially, no connections. Or did he? Some investigators have pointed to a network of female admirers, women who were obsessed with Bundy during his trials, women who wrote him letters, sent him money, visited him in prison. One of them, Carol Ann Boone, actually married him during his murder trial. She stood up in court, declared herself his wife under an obscure Florida law, and later had his child while he was on death row. How? The details have never been fully explained. There are those who believe Bundy had outside help during his escapes. Sympathizers, enablers, people who believed he was innocent, or simply didn't care. And now we get to the part of this file that almost nobody talks about: the connections. In the 1970s, while Bundy was active, several other serial killers were operating in the same regions. The Green River Killer, the Hillside Stranglers, the Zodiac. Now, were they connected? Officially no, but here's what's interesting. Ted Bundy later claimed to have knowledge about the Green River Killer, Gary Ridgway, before Ridgway was even identified. He offered to help police profile the killer, and some of his insights were disturbingly accurate. Did Bundy know Ridgway? Did they communicate? The FBI has never confirmed or denied a direct connection. But here's another angle that researchers have explored. Bundy's confirmed travel routes overlap with dozens of unsolved cases in states he was never officially linked to: Idaho, Wyoming, California. Cold cases from the 1970s that have never been solved. Victims that match his pattern exactly. In 2019, Idaho investigators actually reopened several cold cases specifically to test DNA evidence against Bundy. The results? Not fully released to the public. Why? And finally, this. Before his execution in January 1989, Bundy sat down with Dr. James Dobson for a final interview. He blamed violent pornography for his crimes. It was broadcast nationally, but investigators who were present said something different. They said Bundy was performing, right up until the very end, controlling his narrative, managing his image. Even in his final hours, Ted Bundy was playing a role. The question that remains: was everything we know about Ted Bundy exactly what he wanted us to know? 30 confirmed victims, potentially 100 or more, 2 escapes, decades of unanswered questions. The file on Ted Bundy is thick, but there are pages missing, pages that were never meant to be found. This was file 47. The case is never closed. If you want to go deeper, subscribe, because next week we open another file. And trust me, this one is darker. Stay curious, stay skeptical, and never believe the first version of the story.